being done is trying to figure out how do I get this in?
Right. That's a problem.
She's like my whole language is false. I've got nothing. And that's like I have zero.
Okay.
And somebody is how do I get this in?
I'm gonna just keep inviting people.
Yeah.
Hey, Francis.
Oh, can't hear audio.
Oh, I wasn't talking. Can you hear me now?
Cannot hear audio.
Okay, hold on a second.
Nope.
Nope, still can't. I don't know what to tell you. Can you hear that?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
No.
No. All right.
I thought I was muted, but I just can't hear.
Thank you. I don't know why you can't hear me.
Yeah.
You can hear me now, or you can't hear me?
I can, yes.
You can?
Now, yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. All right. We're going to get started in just a couple minutes. I'm going to see if there's anyone else that needs to join the chat, okay?
Okay. I'm going to disable my camera. Is that okay? Because I'm going to be multitasking.
Yeah, you can disable your camera. Just let me know if you can't hear anything.
Okay.
Just you can use the chat or just shout something out, and we can do that, okay? Okay. While you guys are sitting there and I'm waiting for people to join, I don't know if they're going to, but do you feel like you want to look at chapter 18 or review 1 through 17 and then do chapter 18?
I don't know. Anything you do. What about, do we need 1 through 17?
Maybe not one.
Maybe not 1 through 17, but like.
In vocab language.
No, I hear you.
Thank you.
Like, it's one of those things where we're sort of focusing on other things, like in terms of like numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Should we be ready for numbers? And this kind of stuff, you're going to get numbers like naturally. Does that naturally thing happen this next quiz? Is that the natural happen?
Did you go through the vocab for that chapter?
Yeah.
Like, just keep that up, like, and potentially vocab for that chapter would show up on this quiz.
Okay.
But not the ins and outs of numbers of that chapter. I would, at some point in this semester, just kind of go through that chapter because numbers they happen
right.
In exegesis. They happen. Now, granted, when you get to exegesis, I know that the goal is that you're not having to use any of the software. However, let's be honest, you're using software. It may be easier to have a general idea of what some of those numbers are so they don't look totally foreign, which is why I say just go through that chapter. But again, you usually can just cover over things like that and it will pop up and it will tell you what it is. Yeah.
Okay, one last question.
Please.
The quiz coming up, is it just vocabulary? Or is it just anything goes, no whole far?
This quiz should very much be just vocabulary.
And that's one way or two ways?
Probably one way. If I would assume if she did anything the other direction, it would probably be the irregular nouns, the ones that she always tests on.
Yeah.
Nish, Isha, Anashin, Nashin. Yeah, the classic ones. If she's gonna go that direction, I would assume it would primarily be those words.
So it's really just a vocab. Make sure you know your vocab.
Yeah, hopefully you didn't forget your vocab because you still need that now that you're in Hebrew too. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, those are my non-factual.
That's all right. So it's just vocab this Saturday. And it's going to be Saturday morning, so that means on Friday she's probably going to go through 18, probably just 18. I can't imagine that she would try and get to 19 on Friday. But, okay. So what if I went back to another time and place? Like, all right, I'm just going to go through these chapters and I'm going to name the titles and you tell me if you need to go through them.
Okay.
I'm hoping that the first 3 is no, you don't need to go through them. But the first chapter, alphabet and consonants and vowels, you've got those, right? I really hope so. If you didn't, you did really good on that final for not knowing what anything was.
Yeah.
And
I'll be honest, I can't.
that's fine. I don't care if you can recite it. I just want to know if you can recognize the letters and what they sound like. And yeah, you don't have to recite it for me. Chances are you're not going to get another test where you're asked to. Yeah, but the Greek alphabet, I can recite that too because I knew the sorority pledge song. Not because I was in a sorority. Nope. No sorority for this girl. No. No, it had nothing to do with sororities, actually.
Fair enough.
Okay, so you're good with alphabet. You're good with vowels. Even like long and short and things like that, and the rules with the dagesh and the schwa. At least good enough to not spend time on it.
Yeah.
Okay. Then syllabification and pronunciation. Feel good about
I
that?
did get some wrong in the final, but it was more. I was so focused on the schwa rules
Okay.
and that jump that I missed.
Yeah. The fortes. Yeah. So, general takeaway, pay attention to fortes. And a forte could be a lene in certain letters. Which letters? Okay. So 3, 4, the nouns, the noun endings. Feel good about those? Endingless, line,
Yeah.
comite, oath. Feel good about it? Okay.
Yeah.
That's a long chapter. How about the definite article and the conjunction vav of chapter 5? Definitely have those. Those, I feel like those are my favorite. I can nail those when I see them. Okay. Then chapter 6, prepositions, the independent ones, McCabe prepositions, inseparable prepositions, and the only thing that I would always just encourage people is min. Min can be weird, and it does whatever it wants to in certain cases, so just always be aware of that. And what about adjectives in chapter 7? Those are fine. The use of adjectives, the way they look, how they're translated.
They'd have been a whole lot harder.
Okay. Yeah.
That's true.
I think they would have been, because they were hard to communicate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you've got attributive, predicative, and substantive. You're good to go. Okay.
Yeah.
Then chapter 8 is pronouns. Yeah, I would recommend, if you haven't already, or if you've forgotten them and now you need a chance to remind yourself, all of these little graphs that are in this chapter, little paradigms, the independent personal pronoun, the demonstrative paradigm, I would treat those like vocabulary and try not to forget them. Because those are typically the ones that when they come up in translation a little later down the line, they're going to be the first things that are going to leave your head and you're not going to be sure exactly what it is. And right. And so context can sometimes help you out, but sometimes because it's a demonstrative this, that, these, those, it's not going to help you out all that much if you have no recollection of what that is. So don't forget what demonstratives are. And what about chapter 9, pronominal suffixes? Into there.
No.
They're not all the way there. Okay.
Yeah. No.
Okay. And remind me, you would rather do paradigm reproduction than put it attached to a word. That's what you do. Okay.
So in the end, I think final instructor on the conflict,
Right.
and then everything I did.
Right.
That was
Mm-hmm.
look at a word, remember the word that I memorized on,
Right.
and catch it in that word. Figure out.
That's a lot of, yeah. Right. Okay. So, would you like to reproduce this paradigm?
Sure.
Okay. All right. And then we'll do that. Type 1 and type 2. Can't forget that there's 2 types. All right, so that's what we'll say. We were starting in later. Okay. So then we're just going to go down. And I'm going to write out all of the possible endings, and then you tell me what they are. Francis, can you see the board when I write on it? When I write the...
Yes. Not too clearly, but yes.
Not too clearly. Oh, because of that glare. Hold on. Let me move this out of the glare. Whoa. That wheel's lost. Is that a little better out of the glare?
Yes.
Yeah. It might also be better if I use black instead of blue. About that. You can see that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Then I'm just going to write this down so remember the ending. Just because. But if you can tell me what the ending is by doing it just in my head, you can do that too. I taught her Hebrew.
Well, I feel like
You may not.
we could probably
Okay. So pronominal suffixes. This is just type 1 for right now. Don't want to go to type 2 one. But tell me the difference between type 1 and type 2 again.
Type 1 is the noun is attached to
Right.
Type 2 is noun.
Right. So we're doing the singular nouns right now. And so what is the first common singular?
Correctly.
Correct. That's the noun. What about second masculine singular?
It's class.
Feminine singular?
Call.
Okay. Third masculine singular? Yeah. And feminine singular?
That is going to be the A with dash.
Comments
Oh, it's fine.
before
Sorry.
it. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm thinking of
Okay. How do you feel about singulars? Good, because we're going forward.
you get the name that matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Hebrew trivia. Okay. Okay. First common plural.
You gotta have that. Really? Oh no, I'm sorry.
No,
I'm sorry. That's
Yeah. It's weird, 'cause I don't really do it like that.
new. It's
I
a
know.
Okay.
new.
You're correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
New, not old.
No, no.
You sure? What about second masculine plural?
You got the
Sickle. Yeah.
Right. And feminine plural? Third masculine.
You can wear and you can check these.
Yeah.
It's just like,
And feminine. And when you're trying to remember these, do you guys have any tricks for remembering which is which?
yeah, I mean, the second one is off.
Right.
Third one is
Yeah.
do remember that. And then for me, I kind of already went down.
Right.
Yeah.
And then,
Oh, okay.
and then the nun is a woman. Yep. So those are good. So then, when do you have a harder time remembering the type 2, or if you know this, can you just apply?
If I know this, and I see
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely mine. Definitely. Well,
is that the way to feel
is
about
that gonna what? Find it real hard in the future?
No, but you should just be prepared. I think it's chapter 19 is pronominal suffixes added to verbs.
Oh.
Yep. Yeah. Yep, that's
Do you
definitely what chapter
still-
19 is.
Do you still have the book?
Yeah, what it is, since I just jumped there, it's basically giving you the object. So the verb is the subject, like to kill, like instead of he killed, it's like he killed me, he killed him, he killed her. It's telling you who's receiving the action. Does that make sense? The pronominal suffix is who's receiving the action. Okay?
Yeah, that makes sense.
We'll probably not go over that too much this week because the pronominal suffixes themselves look the same. They're just being added to your verbs. I think I said I like Hebrew verbs better than Greek verbs.
Remember that.
And
This is our version.
yep, I think I did probably say that because I like it better than Greek. Hebrew verbs are the way that it's supposed to be. I think more and more you're just more prone to the first language that you learn.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
And I also think that that probably happens generally, but it probably happens even more in this context because you end up starting your second language while you're finishing your first. And it's very difficult to divide your attention adequately.
I think once you become fluent in the second to be able to
Yeah. I mean,
I prefer it.
so
Okay. Then the only one that we need to find are
do you mean the alternate endings?
Yeah.
Awkward ones, alternate forms, whatever.
are those words not synonymous?
True. Awkward and alternate, pretty much synonymous. You're right. All right, so we'll go through the alternate endings instead of the type 2 because the type 2 pretty much just adds a yod before the ending. And then there's other vowels and stuff, but if you see the yod and then the ending, that's probably a type 2. Does that help?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then we'll go to the alternate one. So this is a good week to keep testing yourself on your pronominal suffixes because you need to remember them well, be able to add them to your verbs.
Okay.
So alternate form. Sorry, Francis, this isn't going to be black. Yeah, she'll have wanted you to work through 18, 19, and 21, I believe. She's going to come back to it. She usually skips it and goes out of here. And then I think she has 21 and then goes right to 20. And then back to 22. I'm going to be live on air. Look at you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's no big deal. Yeah, that's fine.
I learned before.
What?
The whole kind of go ahead and knock out the scaffold, and then we're going to circle back around and pick up your dead body. Like,
The format of.
yeah. Compared
Okay.
to, oh, here's a new language. I'll introduce it to you, and then you will go forth and conquer. as opposed to sort of just running into an ambush and just getting blown up. Then she
Well-
comes back
You
around.
come back and you watch the page, you're alive.
Yeah, like, it's a little bit more traumatic.
Oh, you did that.
Yeah, yeah. That was really dumb.
Well, the way that I always did this class, even though it says that you should have worked through all of this before you get to class, is I go up to whatever the quiz is going to be on the next week.
Or what I've been doing.
I did that as well until you added several quizzes to that.
True. And I think that Hebrew 2 will be different because the schedule hasn't changed and the dates were set and there was no last minute changes to the dates. And I looked at the whole homework schedule and so did Dr. Petter, and everything looks like it is pretty much on target. It would be really difficult to change it around a whole lot. It should be
I'm fine with that.
a totally different experience.
I just worked that until it didn't work. My confidence.
I can understand that, but it's a new semester. It's a new day. It's a new year. It's 2015.
Time and new
Yes. Uh-huh. We'll start anew. And if I were you, I would focus primarily on chapter 18 this week. Also, even more so than the concepts of 18, all of your vocab that you know. Just know it really well. Not just because of the quiz, but it's so much more difficult to have to remember old vocab when you're already into the next couple of chapters. So do that primarily this week. And then, I know this is the middle of tutoring, but I probably am not going to be doing a formal tutoring session next week.
Yeah, I know you said that. That's
Yeah.
totally reasonable to do that.
I just feel like I want to say it again, just so that there's no one confused or disheartened by the fact that there's not a formal. I figured you would be, so I'm apologizing formally right now that as I'm driving from Washington, D.C. to Boston, I'm not going to be pulling over to do a Google Hangout. You're right, I do have a smartphone.
Are there no chilies along the way that you can pull into?
You're right, and there's plenty of Wi-Fi hotspots that I could stop at. I'm reevaluating, and probably I'll stop in the middle of the day just to do this for you guys. I'll shoot you all a text. I'll shoot you all a text. But hey, if I'm just in a truck stop bathroom with
like you're drawing on the mirror.
and I'm just drawing on the mirror. Exactly. I'll ask your forgiveness then as well for anything else I may expose you to. And if anything happens to me while I'm there by myself in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, you will be murdered.
There will be witnesses, and you'll just have to point the police to this video that will be live on YouTube. So that
strikes me as being kind of small comfort as you're being murdered.
Well, the other thing that I'm going to take comfort in is it will be your fault.
This officer.
Yeah. All I'm going to say to you is that while it's happening, I will know that it'll be your fault that I'm dying. So that will also be
You
my
have Rich
comfort.
on the other side then.
He's got a bullet. Well, no, details, but obvious he's gonna have a bullet.
All right. Well, that's taken care of. Tutoring back on. Truck stop bathroom.
Taking first shot.
Be there.
Before, what we got?
Yeah, it will be taken 4.
4 is what your version.
Yeah, mine will be taken 4.
Taken 4.
I'm glad you guys are here. I'm important enough for an actual sequel. I don't need to point anything.
Was that like a web
It's not 3.1.
3.5.
All right. Now you're going to send me an alternate entry, and I'll let you know about the tutoring next week.
I'm gonna go with.
Yeah, we're comfortable with that.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. I appreciate that support. The week after, though,
As my wife says, you know, murderers on the worst people, graduates do the worst. That's just true.
That's also
That's
true.
That's true.
That's
They're the
true.
worst horrible people. The takers, the just gross, like whatever it takes to get the next day, like the next day. Like,
Not murderers, but graduates are the worst people. I agree.
yeah, I mean, that's
All right, graduate students. What's the alternate ending for first common singular?
none.
None.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Right. So this one is actually kind of simple because it's not very different. You just, if you see the hierarchy, just know that it is a pronominal suffix. And then the other thing is if you know your vocab well enough, you'll be thrown off by that random noon. And you'll just know that it's part of a pronominal suffix. Which is also why you should go back through all of your vocab. All of it. All the time, including the little sections that don't necessarily show up on your vocab list, but they're paradigms. You should probably treat those as vocab. Yeah. Okay, what about the third masculine singular alternate ending? There is a sheriff.
Right.
Yeah, it's a hey sheriff. So this one is kind of, this I think is the one that you have to spend the most time on because it looks completely different. Preammer.
A preeminence, yeah.
Yeah, because that's what it normally looks like. It's the whole embossed. And so this little dot jumps right on down to make it a sheriff, and you're adding a hey.
I was thinking of the hay mountain and
Yeah, so you're like, hey, get out of there.
my
Go right in there and that's sheriff.
Yeah.
You gotta do what you gotta do. Hey mounts out that dot and put it right into the sheriff. The dot is hiding
Hey,
inside the
leave that
sheriff.
dot alone.
Exactly.
Hey.
Hey.
There it
Leave
is.
that dot alone.
That's gold.
Hey, leave that dot alone. The Vav is protecting
Thank
the
you for
dot.
another hit when I need it, right?
Right there.
Yeah.
Alright, so how about 3FS?
That was
It is easier.
fine.
Yeah. So you have the hey, and the comment goes there. And then go to the
That's
Okay, yeah. Hi, the one.
Oh, I think you were calling it a height.
No, that was
We
really
went
big.
straight from Hebrew to Chinese.
Yeah, that's a hybrid. You know?
Yeah. So the little mumpig goes away, and then you hide the command. And what about 3MP?
The kamat eats up the hay
Yeah.
and the roll.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
Not before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's kind of like a sinkhole. It's
Yes,
the comment
it
is a
sucked up the
sinkhole.
hay in the seagull.
Yeah. So this was there, the hay and the sigil, and then this sinkhole came there, and so it's all just like right down in there.
It's all in there.
Yeah. So then, so the 3FP alternate form is similar.
That's interesting.
It's another
No,
sinkhole.
it's all with
Yeah.
Oh, I actually like that.
Yeah.
I like that
I
actually.
like laugh and call it stupid.
But it works. Sinkhole took up the hay and the sigil. Okay? Those are your alternate forms. And how do you feel about the pronominal suffixes going on to prepositions and all of that? They don't really change all that much, so
They don't, the only thing you have to remember is
right. Yeah. Colon is the object marker. The colon is the object
One with
marker.
the dagesh.
The Hurek.
Here.
Mm-hmm. And it has the dagesh. So the one with the
Yeah.
Hurek and the dagesh.
I was remember the dagesh one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's with the dogish. With.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the whole and the objects. Okay. Then that means you're on to construct chains in chapter 10. How do you feel about construct chains?
They're all right. I mean,
You're all right.
yeah, they're all right. I will have to say I do get some notes, but the masculine, plural, um, masculine, plural, with the ones yes.
Yeah.
For a little bit. Because I memorized type 1 endings and anything kind of different, type 2.
Yeah. Making a type 2, yeah.
Instead of something back.
Mm-hmm. So then, more so than the concept of the construct chain itself, you
Right,
just
it would
go
identify.
through the construct endings, which can be kind of weird. But it's basically different kinds of vowel reductions. And the thing, I don't know if it's helpful for you to think about, but the reason that there's a difference in construct nouns and the way that they're spelled and the vowels and all of that is because if you were to verbalize it, you verbalize a construct chain as one word rather than as two separate words. So like if you're pronouncing it, you've got to change it a little bit when you're connecting two words together so it's easier to pronounce, which is why you have all of these vowel changes.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Because I know looking at vowel changes and not understanding why they're there can be frustrating.
Sure.
So which is why I just keep throwing that out there.
I like when things
True.
so like the monosyllabic. That is straight up. That is
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good talk.
I got it. I'm good.
I mean,
Yeah, I understand that at the very beginning you get that confusion under the under all entries that fact
mm-hmm.
and that's what's an identical.
Yeah, which section are you looking at? Sorry.
Sorry,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That would be different than like my thought of it. That would that is the market, but
It's just remembering.
getting away from the fact that that's
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Luckily, construct chains typically come in the middle of phrases or they're a big portion of the phrase. And so it's much more confusing to try and remember, like figure out whether that's a 1CS ending for a pronominal suffix or if it's part of a construct chain when you're dealing with small sections. But when you actually get into the text, it will be a lot easier, even if you don't remember that reduced pathak is what makes it that. It will be a lot easier to decide because it will just make more sense one way or the other. So, yeah, sure. Do you need to go through anything else for construct chains? You can sit anywhere. I didn't feel like moving into this. Okay. Then we're still skipping Hebrew numbers. Just read through that chapter whenever. And you've gotten the introduction to Hebrew verbs. I think it's too much information on the front end, but that's just me. But that is a good chapter for you to start your vocab on. The first chapter of verbs.
Yeah.
Probably a good chance those will show up on the quiz. Like on Saturday.
Like I said.
Yeah.
Well,
The first chapter of verbs for vocab, which is chapter 12.
Oh, right.
I think those would be a good tool for a
I've never
quiz.
seen those before.
Yeah. And now's a good time to learn them.
Yeah.
How do you feel about chapter 13, which is your introduction to the cow perfect strong verbs? Patau, patala. It's perfect, so it's he killed. It's completed action. And it's the imperfect that would be the incompleted action, which is meant just the easiest to translate it as future. Right. Let's not jumble all of the chapters together at once.
Call it whatever you want, but I can do it.
I mean, yeah, whatever.
So how do you feel about chapter 13? Would you like to go through the endings?
I think we should definitely do that.
Okay.
Let us. We'll start.
Do we have time for that, or do we need to just do it?
What time is it?
5:30.
I need a digital watch.
Huh?
I need a digital watch.
So,
Yeah, 13 we're doing, I mean,
Well, this is up to you.
yeah.
Do you want to, because now 13 is the strong, 14 is the weak, which is 2 more paradigms that you know. 15 is what? Imperfect? Imperfect strong, so that's the 4th paradigm that you know. And then 16 is imperfect weak, which is, what number am I on? The 5th paradigm that you have to know. And then 17 is Bob consecutive, or Bob conversive, however you want to remember it. And there's not really a paradigm in there, but it's just knowing narrative, past tense, and narrative, future tense.
Yeah, I mean,
Or do you want to just jump to 18 and you guys can review all of those paradigms on your own?
yeah,
What?
I feel like we better use
18? Okay.
Maybe if we get done, we don't put that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Is what? Oh, is there, I don't think there's a camera on it. I don't think there's a camera on that one. Yeah. Okay, so this chapter you're doing cow imperative, cow cohortative, and cow suggestive.
Okay.
Okay. We had, if you did Greek, you had kind of a version of this. At least I know you have the imperative in Greek. You may have had the other ones, and I just don't. But
you know, you had it too.
I don't know how I made it through Greek. I'm not gonna lie. I did fine, but I don't know what I did to do that. But anyway, I know imperative was there. And I think there is something that is comparable to the cohortative and adjective. It's probably just called something different in the Greek. But I know that in Greek you can have an imperative with multiple, like it can either be a first person imperative or a second person or a third person imperative. In Hebrew, it's primarily just second person imperative. Imperative, just like you. Yeah. You do this, you do that, that kind of thing. And then cohortative is primarily first person, and adjective is primarily third person.
And then in Greek, it didn't have
No. The first person.
I am cooler myself. So, imperative. Sorry. Imperative is the most common. And yeah.
But it's only the second person, so it's not that bad.
Right. Imperative.
Compare.
Only second person. So basically, it's expressing emphasis. Kind of, in simple terms, it's kind of like someone yelling at someone. You do this, or you're commanding them. Okay, so the paradigm that you need for this is on page 209, and it's not a super long paradigm, and it's not super confusing. You just need to take time to memorize it. That's all. So I'm going to write it down for you. And let's go using the There is a lot of time in there.
That's cool.
So another way to look at this is these look a lot like the second person imperfect paradigm that you know, just without the prefixes on the front of it. Okay, so like this one has the same diagnostic form that you would expect in the imperfect, but it just doesn't have the performative. Remember what the performative for imperfect grammar is? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So if this were imperfect, it would look like this. Pixel. So this is the same, except for imperative, you just take that off, and the rest stays the same. Okay. So then for 2FS, because if you remember, it's this. Yeah. So really the only thing that's happening here is what you're expecting is this. And then the hierarchy is scooting over, and then that's there like that. Okay? And then 2NP, remember what it is? And so here, hit loop. And then what about 2FP? In imperfect, do you remember? Yeah, tick soma. And so just take off the tick.
But,
So it just looks like that.
Yeah.
So this is the paradigm that you need to know for imperative. It, again, is super similar to your imperfect, so even if you don't really kind of remember this paradigm, but you can remember your imperfect paradigm, you can get pretty close on here for what this should be. Okay? And then the way that they're all translated is you kill. You kill. Now, do it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's And so then they're just giving you other, they're giving you other examples of it on page 211, but they're also telling you that the 2ms imperative, this one, sometimes can also have this added to it. That's not what you need to know for your paradigm if you're going to reproduce it on a quiz. But you do need to know it if you see that. You just need to know that that's an imperative. And it will also change. It'll also change the vowels a little bit if that's there. So if this is there, then that's not there. It will be this. It is, but it won't happen with Katal. It'll only happen with some of these other verbs that take the alternate form. And the thing that they tell you also is to be careful not to confuse this with the Pal Perfect Third Feminine Singular. It looks very similar, except this would be Pal Perfect Third Feminine. You've got to have that thing there. That thing is what's telling you that it's a comet.
Completely different.
It is completely different. I know it doesn't look completely different, but I promise it is. Yeah. That's Pal Perfect Third Feminine Singular.
Completely different idea.
This is
The difference between Katla and Katla.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it does make sense.
Yeah. And that's why the vowels are there, is pronunciation. I know that all of the vowel changes are super frustrating and annoying, but they're all there because long before Hebrew was written down, it was primarily verbal. And so they had to come up with some kind of way to differentiate between the different sounds in the pronunciation when things change very slightly, which apparently is a lot easier to tell if you're a native Hebrew speaker than not.
I understand why they I just don't understand why they have whatever they want. Why not a more
I think because the consonants were put into place a lot earlier than the vowels. The vowels and the Masoretes are like 1300. At that point, they're already dealing with original texts that they have recovered from way earlier than 1300s, and it's probably more of a respect thing than anything, because if you can just add little dots to the way that something is already written, then you're not really...
Well, I'm fine with that. Question.
Right. I think because it's a very similar sound, and it's just a similar sound, and it's probably, I don't know, I think when you're coming up with a vowel system, eventually you get burnt out and trying to figure out how many dots go where. You just say, forget it. I'm adding this line, and that makes it different.
The argument is you got tired.
Yep, that's my argument. Mm-hmm.
I think that's the best around it.
I've heard that.
Human frailty.
Let's be honest. People got tired of it. I bet there was lots of arguments about this, and they're like, forget it. I'm just adding this line
Forget
here.
it. We're going to
doubt
Delhi.
that about the boots. It's supposed to be a third down into law. They're trying to start being.
Yeah,
You got so tired, you started thinking.
you're right. So, this is imperative.
How many languages do Buddhists speak? One.
Just
One.
and that's
Done.
that's that's
Local Buddhist food.
Cal perfect third feminine singular. And that's imperative, second masculine singular.
You can do it 1,000 times.
I know, I'm just
I'm totally with you.
reminding you. Hmm?
That's the other one.
This is an alternate form. And the alternate form is just with the second masculine singular. Mhm. But the form for the paradigm that you want to know is this. That's the form for the paradigm that you want to be able to reproduce. The other one I was showing you is just the alternate form so that you're aware of it. And they give you other words where that alternate form shows up on page 211. Okay? Do you guys remember how you can negate something?
Yeah.
Right. hmm So, same thing goes for here. Use al or lo to negate an imperative.
This
No.
has I in.
Right.
Oh.
Right.
Exactly. Well, look at it this way.
way.
An al that is negating has an aleph, so it's telling you no. Can't do that. The aleph is the X. No. Negation. The ayin means something else. What does it mean? On or upon. So, like, look, something's on or upon me, and I'm pushing it off with the ayin.
Yeah.
Okay?
Got it.
On or upon. And no.
Got it.
I'm going to be, look, I'm broadcasting this, and this should go on a YouTube site, and I'm actually going to send it to you guys, and you tell me if it works. You don't have to watch the whole thing again unless you want to. But, yeah, I'm already decided that next Monday's going to be the day of my death as I do tutoring in a trackside gas station bathroom for you guys. You're welcome.
And the murder's pretty fun.
The murder is free.
Oh, yeah.
And it'll be recorded, and it'll go stream automatically to YouTube, and so, again, it'll be taken forward.
If you're using YouTube, have you thought about using YouTube?
I don't know what that is.
YouTube, you can live broadcast, record at the same time.
Really?
Yeah. Go in, you can go in, look at it. You click the buttons and stay home.
But then would people be able to talk to me? Because I definitely am not going to be talking to no one for 2 hours. Like, if you guys aren't calling into the Google Hangout, I'm not going to sit there and do this.
Well, there's going to be like a command central here, right? Where
Yes.
people are going to come in, you're going to be like,
Scary huge on that
Yeah.
on that board right
I'll
there.
come to that.
Okay.
What's that? I would
He doesn't want to tell you
No,
where he
I
lives.
As if he's very scared.
No, I live in Murray. I'm not. I live very close. I live in Murray Hill. I don't live close my way.
Mhm.
I just basically just come here from school and it's cool.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right.
All right. So what's informative? What's the bullet statement?
Well, I'm going to tell you
Okay.
one more thing first. That's okay. With the imperative, a lot of times there will be added a particle na at the end of it. It'll typically look like a separate word, like Mhm. So this right here is basically translated as peace. So it kind of softens the imperative. Yeah, like, do this, please. And I think it's one of your vocab words in this chapter. I think. If not, you should probably treat it like a vocab word for this chapter. Yeah.
Nah.
Nah. um. Yeah.
It is definitely a book.
Okay, good. And so sometimes it is left untranslated, but it has the basic meaning of please. And the reason that it's kind of cool to know is typically the person that's giving the imperatives in the Old Testament is God. So that means typically if now shows up, then it's God giving a command and adding please to it. So it kind of softens what he's saying. And that can really change the way that you're reading something. So now's really kind of cool.
That is cool.
Yeah. It just doesn't always come across necessarily when you're just reading the English translation, but it's right there in Hebrew. Aren't you guys glad you're in Hebrew too?
I'm right out of the open weaving. That's right.
Okay. Good. Then that section is on translating the imperative, which I just do. And then this section is they're telling you the weak forms of imperatives. Do you guys remember what makes something weak? Tell him yes. What kind of question is that?
Wow. And I love
No,
when he says
I stand here
No, I love
and
when he
do
says
nothing for
He says
2
it
hours.
mid-
Tell him that I
mid-lecture.
was.
Mid-lecture too. So
Mid-lecture.
She's assuming that nothing's happened. So we can as far
Tell him also.
You please give me whatever face, or whatever reaction you would have.
I can't now on the spot.
Do it.
and nothing
Okay, ready?
inappropriate. Remember.
Now I can't do it again.
There you go.
So bad.
And
I'm gonna take with.
also tell him that I was going to send him the link to this, but he can't have it now.
Yeah, he's out.
So anyway, do you remember what makes a verb weak? It's okay. Because you have strong verbs, and then you have weak verbs. Why are they weak?
Let's do their consonants.
Yes. What are the weak consonants?
Guttural.
Yes. Gutturals, because gutturals don't like certain vowels and they don't like dagishes, and so they change the spelling. And so the translation is not weak. The translation value doesn't change. It's nothing like that. All that it's telling you is that there's going to be spelling change because gutturals do what they want. They do. They get you. You're right. So for this section, for weak forms, there's part 1 weak forms, and in the part 1 weak forms, I wrote the root consonants that you're used to in your weak verbs don't really change all that much. So you just have to remember what your weak imperfect verbs look like for second masculine singular, second feminine singular, second masculine plural, and second feminine plural. Because remember I was showing you that it's basically the imperfect, just take off the prefix. So in these weak ones, whatever the vowels are in your imperfect, they're going to stay relatively the same in the imperative. It's not going to be so drastic that you're going to have to remember something totally different. The vowels that do change are the diagnostic vowels. But again, if you see, like the words, the imperatives themselves kind of look like there should be something more to them based on what you already know. And so it shouldn't throw you off too badly because the endings are going to look like the second person. And so you're going to see that, but you're going to see that there's no prefix. And so you're going to know your vocab, you're going to see the endings, you're going to see no prefix, and you're going to say, hey, that's an imperative because it's in second person. Okay? Guys, so girls.
Yeah.
It's part 2. The part 2 for weak forms that is slightly frustrating. And I feel like whenever I admit that it's slightly frustrating, you guys are very frustrated. So just be prepared for that. There's
213.
213.
Well,
Yeah. So you've got the third hey, and those have different diagnostic changes. Do you want me to write them on a board, or you want to look at them in the book? I'll write them on the board for you. On page 15. So this one, there's the, you normally use phono, right? For your third hey, diagnostic figure. So for the imperative, you would probably expect something like this. For the second masculine, for the imperative second masculine singular, because of the paradigm that you're learning. But what it's actually going to look like is okay. So you know second masculine singular for cow imperfect is kidney, right? So you're taking off the tau, and the schwa is staying where it is underneath the dates, but you're adding the lane because it's in the front of the word. And then the symbol is changing to a spirit. Everyone excited about that?
I'm very excited.
Yeah. Okay, so then the 2FS is going to look like this. Which is still pretty similar to the 2FS for imperfect, which is kidney. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So you still have the same ending. You just have to get excited about the fact that it looks different.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then two, new, because the imperfect is kidney. So really the big thing that's happening here is they're adding back the dot in the middle of the date. So it's not doing the V sound anymore, it's doing the B sound.
Okay.
And you're not seeing the holum that you're expecting, because the holum is typically diagnostic for the imperative, but it's not going to be there for the third day. And then for 7 and 12, the nena, from the imperfect to nena. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
The geminate one, the one that's right next to it, this one is not so fun. But really the one I think that is the biggest difference is the second masculine singular imperative
Yeah.
that you need to pay attention to. The rest of them, you remember with geminates, instead of having the bait side by side, whenever you're parsing out the verb, it ends up that bait kind of assimilates into forte. So the same thing is happening here. You're not really losing the second bait, it's just there in the forte form. And the endings are not so different if you look at it from that perspective. It's really just the second masculine singular that you have to be aware of.
Right.
Yeah.
That's weird.
It's weird. It's definitely weird, so pay attention to it. But that the rest of them you should be able to handle without spending too much time trying to memorize that paradigm for the geminate. Okay? Then, let's see. You've got the first moons, which aren't really fun in general. First moon verbs. So you've got, remember in imperfect first moons, the noon typically drops out in all of them? Well, in the type 1 for imperatives, the noon is going to come back in. It's kind of taking the place of, so the forte is going to drop out of the pay, and then instead of the tau that's there for the prefix for imperfect, the tau is going to go away and the noon is going to come back. Is basically what's happening. Okay? And then the endings themselves pretty much stay the same. So you'll, again, if you know your imperfect paradigm, the imperative paradigm won't be that difficult, and the endings will pop out at you, and you'll see that there's no prefix, so it looks the same, but it can't be the same, so what is it? It's an imperative. Okay? The type 2 of first moon, the noon doesn't come back in the imperative. But the forte isn't there either in the second root consonant, which sometimes shows up in the imperfect. So first moon, basically, you really just need to know your first moon vocab really well. So anytime you have a verb that has a noon in the front of it, just spend extra time on it, because anytime it's going to show up in a paradigm or be actually parsed out as a verb, it's not going to look the way that you expect it to based on the lexical form. So you're just going to have to pay attention to those. And the same with first yod. Yods and noons at the front of verbs means you need to be prepared for them to look weird, basically, in any other form than if they happen to show up in their lexical form.
Yeah, that's pretty weird.
Yeah.
That first show.
Mm-hmm. It is.
But it really is not good to think about it. It's usually
Right.
okay.
Mm-hmm. And then you have the biconsonantals. Okay.
Yeah,
So they look, you should be able to see the biconsonantal lexical form in the middle of those imperatives. And you should be able to see the endings pretty clearly. It's really just the prefix that's not there, and that's what's going to tell you that it's an imperative rather than an imperfect. Okay?
okay, it ends up being the lexical form.
Basically, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sometimes, don't forget that the alternate form can show up for the second masculine singular,
Sure.
but only sometimes, and it looks like it's only really happening for him.
You know,
Mm-hmm. And because it can be the lexical form, you just have to rely on it. Okay. And then, okay. The irregular and doubly weak imperatives, there are 3 of them that I would tell you to just treat them like vocab because they're weird enough. The second masculine singular imperative for Nathan, the one that looks like 10, I would treat that as vocab. Because it doesn't have a whole lot of anything that would help you diagnose what the lexical form is. Then the one for to take, the second masculine singular form of lakav, which is just ta, where the lamed drops off entirely, I would treat that as vocab too. And just translate all of those as you give, like the Nathan is you give, take is you take. And then on the next page for halach, to walk, the second masculine singular lek is you walk. Just do it like this. Okay. The rest of imperatives, I mean, it's all of those forms. It's the paradigm that you did, and it's the way that the weak ones look, and it's just a matter of getting comfortable with them. So the best thing you can do for imperatives is really do the workbook. And know your vocab. Okay. Then you have cohortative, which is not imperative, it's cohortative. I think it's helpful that these 3 things, imperative, cohortative, and jussive, only take one person. Like, imperative is only second person, cohortative is only third person, and the jussive is only first person. Because it will, I did that backwards. Cohortative is first person and jussive is third person. Sorry. But it'll help you kind of figure out what's going on. Mm-hmm. All right. I usually do it that way. C is 1, I is 2, J is 3. Not that way. Cohortative is expressing of zero. Okay. So a lot of times it comes across as like, let me or let us, not us, let me honor the Lord, may we do this. Okay. And na the particle that means please can also appear with a formative. So like, let me please do something. Or,
Maybe.
yeah. Um, and so with the cohortative, the form of it is the same as the cal imperfect 1CS or the cal imperfect 1CP. Okay? So the forms that you know, can you tell me what the 1CP is for cal imperfect? LECS.
You said one, yeah.
1CX for cal imperfect. Alex? No.
Yeah.
Then what?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm completely. What's that?
Oh, when you're doing the paradigm for cal imperfect, the 1CS, what is that?
Oh, obstacle.
Yeah.
Then, that much.
No, then you just do the verb.
Oh, yeah. Then,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so unit first. So then if X what? X O?
Mhm.
Yeah. What is that? So that's your 1CS. So do you remember what your 1CP is then? It does have a noon in it. It's probably awkward to do it all in order like this. But
Yeah, it.
that's okay. It is mixed. So that's the basic form for the cal imperfect. When you have a cohortative, which is doing like this would be let's see what's name. So it will look the same, but if you see the cal imperfect and it's and it's the first in its clause, then it's going to be a cohortative. So it's basically changing it to a question. Okay. So this instead of being I kill or I will kill, this as a cohortative will be let me kill. Okay. And then this one, instead of it being we will kill, when this shows up in the beginning of a clause, it's going to be a cohortative, and so instead of we will kill, it will be may we kill. Okay. This is also, if you need to read through this, this is all on page 270. So,
That's not too bad.
yeah. So basically, if it's in the beginning of a clause, cohortative. If the verb is not in the beginning of a clause, cal imperfect. Okay. Usually it's pretty clear which it is, especially if when you're doing your translating, you do the brackets and you separate things out so it makes it easier to see what's going on, which is always going to make it easier to see what's going on since you try and do that. Then you'll be able to see. Another thing, especially with context, there's a big difference between we will kill and may we kill.
Mhm.
And so you'll be able to tell with the context what's going to make more sense. and it can have a drastic effect.
Yeah.
So, um, the other thing that can be helpful is a lot of times with the cohortative, it will add a comment K to the end. So, like that's the cal imperfect, but then this can happen too when it's the cohortative. So it'll look the same, but that comment K will be there, and so that will be a good indicator for you, even aside from the fact that it's in the beginning of a clause, that this is the cohortative that you've done. It doesn't happen 100% of the time though. It happens more often than not that it will have the comment K. I think the book says something like 65% of the time. But it being in the front of the clause is really the first thing that you want to look for. Okay? And that just gives you, that just gives me one piece of it. Okay? So then you have the justice. So if the imperative is second person and the cohortative is first person, the justice is third person. And fourth one. And it also is expressing a wish request. And this is more similar to the cohortative because since it's third person, the basic form of it is going to be the same as the cal imperfect for 3ms, 3fs, 3mp, 3fp. So and the doctor still, but do you remember what those sounds are? Right, but for imperfect, there's probably, yeah. Yeah. Go back to the form then. Go back to the page, the chapter that has your paradigm for imperfect. Yeah, go to it. Coach? Go on. Okay. Go on.
Yep.
Okay, so 3FS is what then? Right. So it's the same, right? Yeah, just go down in your mind until you get to 3M. Pixel, 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 then last one.
Did we do Lyndon?
Yeah, we need to do.
Control and then slowly. Oh, no, I see what you're saying. We need to go down to 3 and
Yeah.
8. I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Yixpo, Yixpo,
Yixalu is 3 MP. Is it? How do I spell
you're correct.
it? Yeah.
Um, then it's a schwa under
So,
so, and then that,
another schwa under the test.
yeah,
Okay.
Lamin,
And so what's 3F?
um, Pixel,
Pixelona.
Pixel,
Pixelona.
Pixel.
Okay. So these are the forms that you recognize for Cal and Perfect, for 3MS, 3FS, 3MP, and 3FP. These are also the basic forms for Jessup, which is expressing a wish or request. So that would be for the person, so it would be like, also, it's adding let or may. Okay. And it's the same concept as the coordinative. It's if it's the first verb in the clause, then it's Jessup. If it's not the first verb in the clause, then it'll just be translated as Cal and Perfect. Like the first one would be he, she, it will kill if it's Cal and Perfect. If it is adjective, it will be like, let him kill or may he kill. It's very similar to the coordinative, except it's only occurs with a third person. Right? The position of the sentence is what's going to tell you. And then with the justice, they're telling you that the shortened form, there can be shortened forms of spelling. And so if you look on page 220 at the top, they're giving you the perfect, what it would look like, the imperfect, what it looks like, and then what a shortened form of the justice would look like. And typically, it's the hay at the end that's just dropping off. And I don't know if this is helpful or not, but a lot of times when a hay is at the end of one word, but that word is at the beginning of a clause, that's usually when the hay drops off, which would be an explanation of why the jussive would have a shortened form.
Okay.
Because the jussive is, if it's starting at the beginning of a clause, then that means that there are words after it, and a lot of times the hay just kind of can't handle the pressure of all of those other words coming after it, and so it drops off. So that's why the jussive can have a shortened form like that. See what I did there? Okay. And then negation, the same thing. Al or low. Al with an L is no. Mm-hmm. And this is the chapter you need to know vocab through. And there is 5 minutes. So is there anything else that you would like to review from previous chapters for 5 minutes? Or any questions, or fears, or doubts, or concerns? You're nervous. What are you nervous about? Okay. I understand. But you did pretty well all the way up to the final. And okay. And then the final came, and it was right around Christmas, and you were traveling, and there's a lot of other stuff going on, and your kids, and, you know, just the whole family, whole thing. That would make anyone's mind go blank. And you're not the only person that didn't do as well as they thought they were going to on a final. And they're still going forward, and you're still going forward. And if you can get back in with your vocab and just do what you can in the workbook to refresh your memory, a lot of it was just the stress of when you were taking it and trying to get it all together. It was all very last minute. There was tutoring the day before, and then you were even considering taking that final right after tutoring that day. So you were all kinds of discombobulated. So you will be all right.
Now, on her
Yeah. Sakai.
on there, when you do your home assignment, you know when it's just like you're doing it in progress, and then you have to stop, check, and run, and just put the new that it's due. If you have to do that, I do that, that's all you say. Don't do that.
I can assume, and I said assume, just going to put that out there, is that she would not want you to type it into that section. What I would assume is if that is something that's up there that she did intentionally and that's what she wants, that's going to be a way that she checks your home workbook exercises, and it's either going to be part of the grade or potential extra credit. I'm not 100% certain on what she's decided on that. I don't have access to your Sakai pages, but yeah, show it to me right after, and I'll see. But she hasn't mentioned anything specific. My thinking is that she'll mention something about it this weekend, or it's just something like just a thing that Sakai has up there, and it's an option. On the homework page, what is due on Saturday?
All our homework is due, or that we're going to do for the kids. 18 and 21. It was really big.
Okay.
I mean, I will show you.
Yes,
Like,
please do.
Here,
And-
that's,
Oh, okay. Pull up your Sakai.
And when you like,
Could
I
you-
turn my homework in like that when I was at yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Or if we turn it over home and dinner.
Do that.
I think also I'm gonna do that. You have
Hey,
a great
Megan.
evening.
Oh wow.
So Megan, I said hi.
No, that's fine, but,
You guys are so fun.
I will.
Okay.
Friday,
Here,
here,
Hebrew.
Hebrew, Saturday.
And then Saturday
Too.
Saturday all day, but Saturday afterwards, just hang out for a little bit in the library with.
Sure. I could very easily be convinced to do some real networking. It would not take much at all.
Great. There will
Not
be
even planned.
food. Okay.
Phyllis, I need to go. Thanks very much.
Oh, no
Thank you.
problem. Thank you. See you later, Francis.
See you then.